Welcome to the channel. In today's video, we will read a story about a man who has a golden child brother that got his fiancée pregnant, so his family abandoned him. Only 5 years later, without contact, his family forced him to be his child father because his brother was in a coma. This is a two-part story, so be sure to like and subscribe for part 2. Let us begin. 5 years back, just a month before I, now 30, was supposed to get married to my fiancée, I found out that she had been having an affair with my brother, and the only reason they were even coming clean to me about it was because she was pregnant and wanted to keep the baby. My ex-fiancée, Karen. 30 years old female, and my brother Chris, 33 years old male, had apparently been sleeping together ever since Karen and I had been engaged. Karen and I have been together since our junior year of high school and had been together through college as well, so getting engaged was obviously the next step since we had been together for so long. Yet, inside of that, after we got engaged, she decided to cheat on me with my brother. The only reason that even happened was that a couple of days after our engagement, my brother had confessed to her that he had always had feelings for her, and he just felt like he had to let her know because she was about to get married. And after that, he could no longer tell her anything about these things. Then she suddenly had the realization that she had also been catching feelings for him gradually. Apparently, they would even flirt behind my back occasionally at family events and stuff, but she was not sure about him, which is why she had stayed with me. I got to know all these things 5 years ago, just a few months before my wedding, when the two of them sat me down along with my parents and told me that they were planning on getting together and she could no longer get married to me because Karen was in love with Chris and they were having a baby together. I had been very upset about it that day and almost refused to believe it. I told Karen that I wanted her to come home with me and end this relationship, whatever it was with Chris, but my mother had made it very clear that nothing of the sort was going to happen and that Chris and Karen were going to be together, and I just had to make my peace with it because it was ultimately their decision. I couldn't even believe that my mother was supporting something like this. At least my dad had the decency to look ashamed and tried to comfort me. But my mother was blatantly just supporting this and even told me that if I had a problem with it, I could keep it to myself because Karen was pregnant and I had no right to bother her when she was in such a delicate condition. My mother was just crazy about finally having a grandchild in the family, so she could hardly care about what I was going through and fought with me tooth and nail to justify what was going on. After the confrontation that day, Karen moved in with my family because her own parents did not want to speak to her anymore after she had told them the truth. We obviously had to cancel the wedding, and my parents covered the cost of it, so I did not have to worry about any of that either. However, I got cast out from the family because I refused to speak to them, and for the past 5 years, we have had absolutely zero contact. The only person who had even bothered to try and reach out to me was my father, but I wasn't even bothered in speaking to him, so there's been radio silence from their end after I cut ties with them. It took me a really long time to get over what happened to me because Karen and I had been together for a really long time. I had loved her truly, so it took me a lot of therapy to get over it, and even now I wouldn't say that I am truly fully over it, but I'm dealing with it. The rest of the family had kept in touch with me, though, and I did find out from them that she had a son with my brother, and just a month after she gave birth to her son, a paternity test confirmed that it was my brother's child and not mine, so there was no need to contact me after that either. And they ended up getting married and have been together for the past 5 years. I had assumed that everything was going well for them, but then about 1 week ago, my mother called me out of the blue, and it took me by surprise because she had been the one who had been the most in favor of Karen and Chris, like at an unhealthy level. So just out of curiosity, I decided to call her back after she sent me an email saying that she needed to speak to me urgently. When I called her, she delivered some pretty bad news to me while crying, and I learned that my brother had unfortunately been in a really bad accident. It was a hit-and-run case, and unfortunately, because of the impact, he had slipped into a coma, and there was no telling how long it would take for him to recover. This had happened last week itself, and just 3 days after, the doctors had said that things were pretty critical right now. My mother had decided to call me up and inform me about it. At first, I thought that she was going to ask me to visit him and be there for the family, which I would have been ready to do because in spite of everything, I think that this is a huge deal, and it would have still been a reasonable enough expectation to have for me. I don't want to turn my back on somebody who is in such terrible condition, but then my mother went off in another direction altogether and said that she wanted me to be there for Karen and my nephew. I didn't even understand what that meant, and then she told me that she now expected me to step up and be there for them in my brother's place. When I asked her to elaborate, she told me that now that Chris was basically not even there anymore, I had to be there for Karen and her child in every way whatsoever. She did not mean just financially, but she actually expected me to step up and move in with them so I would be able to take care of them. She said that she would have taken them in herself, but she was not getting any younger and it would be too much work to take care of all of them. That's why she was calling me to let me know, and she expected me to make a decision on the phone call itself. I obviously lost my temper because for 5 years she did not speak to me, and now when she was finally talking to me, she expected me to do something so big. I could understand that Karen and her son were all on their own right now, and they needed somebody to be there for them, but that somebody should have been someone from their immediate family and not me. Somebody whom she had betrayed and then not even bothered to apologize to. So obviously, I immediately told my mother that I was not going to do any such thing and that she was foolish for even expecting me to say yes to that. Then she started arguing with me on the phone, and I didn't have any time to waste. I was already pretty pissed off, and I did not want to ruin my mood while speaking to her even more, so I just hung up, and then I blocked her once more. I tried to go about my day as usual after that, but I just couldn't stop thinking about what Chris and Karen were going through, and I really felt bad for them. But I obviously was not going to do what my mother had asked me to and take my brother's place in their family because that was just weird, so he was still around. He had just slipped into a coma, but it was not like he had passed away already, and she was acting like he was gone. I was feeling very iffy about this entire situation, so later that day I decided to call my father instead, because I thought that he would be more reasonable than my mother. It was very awkward to speak to him after 5 years of no contact, but after some small talk, I asked him how Chris was doing, and he told me that things were not looking too good right now. Then I told him about the conversation that I had had with my mother earlier that day, and I expected him to have some reasonable insight, but instead, he also said that my mother was right to expect that from me. That really took me by surprise because my dad was usually the more level-headed one out of both my parents, and now even he was saying such weird things. When I asked him if he really meant that, he told me that he did and said that Karen and I have had a history anyway. And I'm also part of the family no matter what our relationship for the past 5 years has been. Ultimately, I am blood. And if they can count on anybody to step up for the family, it should be me, and my mother's expectations are not exactly unreasonable. That really threw me for a curveball, and right now, I honestly don't have any idea what to do. For the past week, I've been avoiding speaking to anybody from my family, even my other relatives, since I'm just afraid that somebody will bring this up with me, and then I'll be forced to explain my decisions. I also kind of feel like the bad guy here because I'm refusing to step up for my family, and I know that they really need me. If not financially, then at least emotionally. I just honestly have no clue what to do, and I know that what my mother is asking of me is really weird and unreasonable, but at the same time, I feel bad for rejecting it outright. I haven't even been down to the hospital to see my brother because I just feel so weird about this entire situation. Neither have I been able to speak to any of my friends about this since all of this is so personal. They know how things have been between my family and me ever since my wedding got called off. But this is something a little more strange than that, honestly. And that's why right now I'm posting this here on Reddit, because I really think that I need some objective opinions about what I should do. Be it my friends or family, everybody is going to have some sort of biased opinion. I really need advice because I think I'm going to lose my mind if I don't find an acceptable solution to all of this soon. I honestly feel like I'm going back to that phase of my life where I was constantly thinking about Karen and Chris right after I found out that she had been cheating on me, and that was a really dark era, and I don't want to go back there since it has taken me a lot to snap out of it. So please, whatever anybody has to say, no matter how harsh the opinion might be, please just tell me so I can at least distract myself. So AIITA for refusing to go see my family and step up for them after my brother got into an accident? And that's the end of part 1 of this story. What do you guys think about this situation? Let me know in the comment, and I will see you in the next video.